Even though Visage's win rate is only average, I'm firmly convinced he's one of the strongest heroes of patch 7.28. So in this video we're going to discuss why I think people are building Visage wrong, why I think the Aghs is a bit overrated, and how to find a better approach to playing Visage. We're going to feature a game here by Dreamocel, the Indonesian professional DotA player, and he's going to be playing Visage in the mid role here against a Lasthitting, which is a fairly good matchup for Visage, at least in the laning phase. Later on it can be a bit problematic because of all the AoE damage that Lasthitting puts out, but it's still okay because you can also kill Lasthitting reasonably well. In this lane you don't want to do anything spectacular, you just want to preserve lane equilibrium if you can. Having these creeps here at your high ground is great. That's what Dreamocel is going for here. And you just want to try to outlast the opponent as well as possible. You get Grave Chill. This helps you to get easier denies and last hits. And then Grave Cloak helps you with trading. And so you just want to do the standard Visage stuff. There's nothing particularly amazing that's going to happen here at the start. It's just going to be trading farm back and forth. And as you can see, it's actually doing a reasonably good job. And this is helped out a lot by the recent changes to Visage, because Visage now actually has a pretty good attack animation. His damage also is actually pretty decent, so he's now actually a pretty good last hitter. As you see, when the wave is at the enemy high ground, you don't really want to contest this. You just want to avoid that situation by either having the wave pushed into you or pushing into the enemy, and just try to go for these trades. Because you have Grave Cloak stacks, these trades are generally pretty good, but you don't want to go for like an extended trade unless you have Soul Assumption, because you're not going to win those. Visage is quite a hard hero to play to the full potential, not only because of the micro and the unusual mechanics of his spells, but also because Visage's item build is extremely flexible. There's not really any particular item that's a core item on Visage. Not any item at all. Like obviously you want to get booped at some point, as with any hero, but other than that, everything is wide open. So in this game, we're actually going to see Dreamocel going for an early hand of Midas, which is quite a strong approach, because Visage is very much reliant on experience. He wants to get, especially at level 12, as soon as possible, because level 2 familiars are much stronger than level 1 familiars. You want the level 12 ASAP, and you generally as mid Visage play rather passively in lane. You just generally chill out in the mid lane, and you don't really want to leave your lane too much before you actually reach that level 12. And if you're playing this passively anyway, it kind of makes sense to go for the Midas as well. Of course, Midas is not an every game kind of item, but if you can get away with it, it's definitely very strong. And here in this particular game, we have actually a safe lane Snapfire and off lane Nightstalker. So we have two other cores that are not that greedy, so we can afford to be a bit greedy here in the mid lane and open with that Midas. Dreamocel started here with a circlet. In some games he upgrades it to a No Talisman, which is a very reasonable early game item on Visage, but here in this game he thinks he can just be okay in this lane without No Talisman, so he's just gonna keep the circlet here and go straight for the Midas. But he is buying some regen along the way, so he bought some extra tangos here, but he actually will be able to sustain in this lane. But then after the wand here, which of course is great against Lasthitting, kind of a spammy hero, he goes straight for the Midas for that greedy approach. Once you have your familiars out, the game opens up a bit. Still, most of the time you're not really going to be able to kill opponents with level 1 familiars. They don't do that much damage, but they allow you to farm a lot faster. So now it's just going to push in this wave quickly, and then you can go and hit a jungle camp, or if your opponent leaves the lane, you can hit his tower. But here it's just going to play it safe. It's going to check for this rune and then do some jungling. And this is pretty much what you want to do here for the next couple of minutes. You want to get that level 12 as soon as possible. Against certain heroes, you can be more aggressive, like for example if you're playing as a sniper, there's a big kill threat you have. You have to have some sort of +1 rotation coming in, and then you can easily kill a sniper. But against Lasthitting it's not that easy because he actually does so much AoE damage that he can deal with the birds fairly well. You need to be quite careful against him. And also against any sort of melee hero, there's a very low chance of actually getting a kill unless they overextend. So we're just going to be passive here and farm the lane and these nearby camps here. Your opponent leaves the lane, you can go ahead and hit the tower, but as soon as TP comes in, he goes back to farming. When there's only a support in the mid lane, you can try to push your luck a little bit and see him getting in some damage here together with these illusions. But he's not really getting too much done here. And he might even lose this bird here, but the stun misses, so the bird gets saved. And now with the Lasthitting returning, he's just going to go back to farming and play this more passively, and it's going to leave the active play to his other cores. Even though we do want to be passive, sometimes someone invades our territory, the Skywrath Mage, going on some sort of expedition, and so we're just going to move in here, try to find him, gather the courier here, and that is going to be a very easy kill here, with Soul Assumption delivering the finishing blow. An item you're very often going to see on Visage is Medallion, but here in this game we're not going to see Medallion. Medallion is a bit of a fighting item mode. It's not that good for farming because it has a 12-second cooldown and most creatures die much faster than 12 seconds. So actually for farming, Blightstone is just more efficient. That being said, it's also perfectly possible to actually go for Medallion plus Blightstone. Of course, then you might get into some sort of slot troubles here. It's also very useful to have some sort of mana regen item, which is something that Medallion also provides. But here in this game, he's found a Keen Optic, which should be enough to cover most of his mana needs here. They've seen Lasthitting at bottom, and now Lina is defending this mid lane. So since the support is rotating in, this is going to be a nice kill here. Lina gets stunned up, and there's no escape for her. So taking her down, and now I can start to threaten this tower. And also another advantage from Bloodstone over Medallion is that it also works against buildings. That's a lot of building damage here being delivered onto this tower. So you're going to try to defend this tower, but Skywrath is a hero that's very vulnerable to us. So you always tend to want to go after the ranged heroes, especially with level 1 familiars, because they do sort of damage that the damage block for melee heroes is a big hindrance, which of course means that ranged heroes are more vulnerable. So in this fight they actually get 2 kills, and this tower is not very low, it might be denied here. So Lina trying to go for the deny here, but Visage comes in and actually Snapfire manages to get that last hit, so very well done to her. And you already see Radiant taking a big lead here. So Visage went even in this lane, and then after that, since the other 2 lanes are also going fairly well, Visage is here top of net worth and can further extend that lead with his Midas. So okay, we have our basic setup now. We have level 2 familiars, we have our Midas, and then the next item he's going to go for here is actually mech. It's also considering the Aghs, which is also perfectly viable, but instead he went here for the mech. This is great, especially in the games we're already ahead. So in this kind of lineup, they're ahead already, and they're also playing a very aggressive lineup. So they have this Night Stalker and the Snapfire as the other cores. They have no real carry. They don't want to let this game go to the late game, where this Wraith King with his Midas going for Radiance, and this CK and so on can just outscale them. So they just want to go for aggressive pushing items, so mech is a great choice in that regard. We'd also argue for Pipe here. Pipe is a great item because they're up against all this magic damage from Skywrath, from Lasthitting, from Lina. Wraith King also can have Radiance if he goes for that. So Pipe is a great item here. And that's also something, of course, that the Night Stalker might go for here. Or that Snapfire, once she has her Aghanims. When 7.28 first came out, all the Visages were just rushing Aghanims, and Since then, Aghs has been nerfed a bit. They removed the ability to have flying vision during the Aghs flight, which makes the item quite a bit worse. It's still very strong, it's still a very strong option, but it's not something you want to rush for in every game. So in this game they already have great initiation from the Snapfire Aghs together with that Night Stalker. Just toss the Night Stalker into people. You have that crippling fear. That's great initiation, so you don't really need to do that sort of initiation hunting job as Visage with Aghs, so you can just focus on being a team fighter by buying items like mech or pipe, and in this case he's going to go for just that very early Grease Rush, which is especially strong if you're already ahead in the game, because it gives the team so much sustain and allows you to just keep fighting after winning those team fights. Also, a big downside of the early Aghs is that it doesn't help you farm, and the kind of playstyle that Aghs encourages is more of a hunting kind of playstyle, which means that your farm rate naturally goes down. But we already have a Midas, so if you want to go for Midas, it's actually perfectly viable to follow up with an Aghs. But as I said, in this game, we don't really have to play that initiation or hunting role, because that's what Night Stalker and Snapfire are for. The great thing about Visage is that his item build is so flexible. You can just build whatever your team needs. Does your team need a team fight? Well, then you can buy items like Guarding Greaves, like Pipe. You can build something like Vlad's. You can build an item like a Drum if you want to hit a timing in the mid game and a team fight with that. You can later on build an AC to help your team fight. Do you need Disable? Well, then you can buy items like Rod of Atos. You can buy an Orchid. It's actually perfectly viable to open with Orchid as Visage. You can buy a Scythe later on, because these are all great items. Do you need someone to make things happen on the map, to hunt for kills? And you can go for the Aghs. Do you want to really buff up your position 1? Then you can go for a Solar Crest and put that Solar Crest buff onto some sort of hard carry hero like a Terrorblade, for example. There's just so much flexibility. You can even go for something like a Spirit Vessel if you're up against a hero where you need early Spirit Vessel. You can build a Heaven's Halberd. There's so many different options you can go for. Enemy team right now is playing very defensively. They're retreating just back here. They see that the Wraith King is also somewhere nearby, so this just means they can just force this Roshan. And they have pretty good vision here. They have this ward, and they have vision from the creep wave here, so they can just do this Rosh. Also, of course, goes quite quickly here with all these birds. And with Invoker giving some buffs to our Night Stalker, they get the Roshan, and see another initiation here, trying to find something with Night Stalker with that really overpowered Snapfire Aghs, but they don't find anything. But they do claim the Aegis, and now they can just keep pushing. The next item for Dreamocel is going to be this Aghs, which is not a bad choice, but to be honest, I would have preferred a Pipe. This is a very strong Pipe game. There's so much magic damage in the enemy lineup, and just generally Pipe is a very strong item on Visage because it helps protect the familiars by both directly giving them this barrier and the magic resistance, but also helping you keep up your own Gravekeeper's Cloak stacks. So this just makes your familiars much more durable. And in this kind of game, they just want to push and want to take these straight up fights, and there an aura item like Pipe is, I think, slightly superior. They're going for the high ground now. Visage is here at the front. He has the Aegis, and his birds can just hit the tower to a lot of damage, and then they get the initiation here with Night Stalker. Don't quite find anything more than this support Lina, but that's good enough. You can just keep going now. And with Lina buying back, they fall back here slightly, but they actually find a Wraith King who's out of position, so they go for him. And as Visage, you generally want to go for the ranged targets, the more squishier targets, but you just have to go for what you can. You need to watch your positioning here, and then just spam out that soul assumption, and that's exactly what he's doing. And here you can see them just overrunning the opposition, and they're gonna claim the win here in a pretty short order. So this is one possible way of itemization. As I said, there's no one way of itemizing Visage. There's a million different builds you can go for, and this I think is a very good build here in this particular game. So definitely do play around with that Midas build in games where that's appropriate. And well, Aghs is very strong. You shouldn't rush it in most games. Some games it's great, but here in this game, rushing Aghs would have been a mistake. So having that Greaves really helped them a lot in team fights and helped them accelerate their way to this early victory. So do tell me in the comment section what you think about Visage right now. What do you think of the kind of Midas build? Do you think Aghs is a must item on Visage? Let me know in the comment section. And as always, I'm gonna have two videos here for your viewing pleasure. One of them is a nice Lycan game. Lycan, probably the most overpowered hero of the current patch. So do check that out, and Obelisk Villing, I'll see you next time.